Well, it's time for my favorite chat of the week. And it really is a chat, a discussion with mining guru Peter Major. We're going to be talking mining in the Miningweb Weekly. I love this time together, Pete, not just because I seem to find you all over the world. Last week it was in Johannesburg when we were at the Indaba. The PR people got really cross because I called it the mining Indaba. Don't know why they would have got so cross that I called it that. Oh, it was mining. You know what? No, apparently there's another mining Indaba. So if you do the Joburg Indaba, it's supposed to be called the. Anyway, whatever. But it was good seeing you, and really good seeing how this event, which is now into its 13th year, is getting stronger, just getting stronger and stronger, and really good stuff coming out of it. But on reflection, what did you take away?
It's very good, as usual. I said earlier that I thought the second day was very different from the first. I think the quality of speakers, the topics, and people getting down to essentials was a lot more clear and driven on the first day. But, both days I was making notes a lot the first day. The second day, there's a lot of repetitive cut and paste talk. And look, I go there for specific reasons. I want to see activity. I want to see our minds being developed, our minds looking for funding. And okay, that's my professional and personal reason. And for plugging in, yeah, I've been on quite a few months. And this Joburg Indaba should be called the South African Mining Indaba because, as you saw, Alec, it was mainly South African related. And that's great. That's what we're here for. We want to know what's relevant to us in this country. This country's in trouble. It's built on mining because God gave this country more minerals than any other country. And when we were using those minerals, it was building a strong first world country. And we're not using those minerals correctly. We're producing less than half what we should have been had we just left the infrastructure we had in place in the 80s and 90s. So, yeah, I'm looking for where's the growth coming out of this sector? Where's the bright spots? What's going to happen in mining that's going to help this country? And what's this country doing to help mining?
Pete, you must remember when I started in financial journalism in 1980, it does go back a long time, but it was my very first job. So I was so fortunate that mining was in 1980. We were in the middle, or we started with a gold boom, and mining was where it was at. There were many, dozens and dozens of mining companies listed on the stock market. So anybody who was around at that stage in my field would have got a good understanding of mining grades and recovery grades and the resources that you had in the ground, etc. So it was a big. It's always been a big industry for me. When I then went to the mining Indaba, it kind of got to me on the basis. It felt a bit like, and I know it's not as exaggerated, but a little bit like what happened in Zambia when when the new government took over in Zambia and they kicked out the colonialists. Zambia decided to nationalize everything, and in the process, they destroyed the mining industry. I got that sense in South Africa that this jewel that should have been protected and should have been developed has just been, I don't know if it was through neglect or through because they wanted to do it intentionally, but mining has the numbers, they're still fairly impressive, but they're just nowhere near where we were in bygone years. And the thing that shocked me most was to hear that there'd been no exploration for new minerals in 20 years. So it's not even a question of there's been new mines in 20 years, but no one's even looking at the minerals to build the mines. Now, I know you've been saying this a lot. For the first time for me, this hit me in the face.
You summed it up perfect, Alec. Perfect. And it's more than an analogy. It's a replication of what happened in Zambia. A fantastic industry that was homegrown and built up over 70, 80 years was plundered, neglected, destroyed, mismanaged. And you're exactly right. Sitting at that Indaba, you're probably hearing the same screams and moans and cries that we've heard in Zambia. The Zambian, when they nationalized those mines in the late 60s, early 70s, Zambia was a titan. It was in the top 10 copper producers. And they made their own steel. They had their own power plants. They mined manganese. And I think copper production was 700,000 tons, and it fell all the way to 200,000 tons over the next 30 years. Think how many men lost their jobs. Think how many industries fell apart dependent on those coppers. We've fallen from 650 tons of gold produced a year for decades down to 90 tons. And yet we still have half the world's gold. Anybody should be asking, who managed this? Who oversaw this? Who implemented this disaster? We're producing less coal now than we were 25, 30 years ago. We're producing less iron ore than 25, 30 years ago. We were a Leviathan in 1980. Nobody could beat us in 1980. Anglo-American was the largest investor in the United States of America. The Americans were terrified of us. So, yeah, you are seeing what's happened in Zambia and in Zimbabwe. And it's not turned around here. It's still going down.
Zambia is an interesting situation now with H.H. Hichilema and I think it was after his fifth run at becoming president, he finally got through after being thrown in jail and having his free enterprise approach to life being ridiculed. I guess at some point in time, the Zambian people said, whoa, there's a mistake here. We know what we were. We look at where we are. And now we are prepared to go back to rebuilding. Is South Africa, you heard the Gwede Mantashe presentation, the Minister of Mines. I was on my way back home, so that was the one that I missed. I wanted to be home that evening. What did he say that we can draw some hope from, that he's finally had his eyes opened, or his fellows in the ANC realized they've created this disaster, but they can start fixing it?
Yeah, I didn't take notes. And I thought the best presentation of the second day was the last presentation, and then Gwede came on to close everything. And I was telling everyone around me, this guy has a big opportunity. People remember what you say last. They remember what you do last the most. That it's the way human nature is. And he's got a chance now to go up there at the end of a great Indaba, and he can be a hero. And he doesn't have to do very much. And he can be a hero. And we will forget, ignore, pretend so much of this past decade or two didn't happen, or we'll downplay the negative. We'll remember him for the positive. Yet he seemed to not comprehend the opportunity he had. He seemed to go up there with the attitude, I'm not going to say anything different. People might think I'm weak, or they might think I'm caving in. And I found him just rambling on. He likes making jokes. Everybody likes a joke now and then. But I would say 50% of his talk was tongue-in-cheek, was joking, kidding, and then talking about the workers and how bad things were before. And he's really big on women in mining. Before we had 3% women in mining, and now we have 20% in mining. And that's an achievement. And mining is a rough, tough, mean business, but there's a lot of mining women are very well suited for. Not very many women are well suited for shaft sinking or carrying a jackleg on the lower levels of deep hot water mine, but driving equipment, operating machinery, and mining, it's what I've always loved about Alec. It encompasses every trade known to man, every skill known to man. And so that is good. But is that there because the ANC is there? Do we have Black managers and CEOs because of the ANC? Newmont Mining, that was running O'Keefe in 1978, started promoting people based on position and meritocracy, and it led to the white mine workers strike. And this nationalistic government, who do you think they backed? They backed Newmont Mining. And they cut off their voter base. That was the White Mine Workers Union. They said, that's not right what you're asking. It is perfectly right what Newmont's asking. So we had transformation going rapidly from 78, 80, 82. So the general manager's daughter, when I was on Harmony, was working on the mine, fresh out of UCT. She was breaking bounds. And I'll tell you, she did it on meritocracy. So it's good that Gwede said that, but he's got to give credit where credit's due. And he keeps talking about transformation. Transformation should be about transforming the country as much as the industry. Transformation should be taking an industry that's shrinking and making it growing, an industry that has no more relevance to overseas, and that people want to send their engineers here instead of taking engineers from here. People want to send management here instead of taking them away. Electric power companies used to send their employees to see how Eskom worked. We were so efficient, so professional. So, I didn't take notes. I was a little bit tired. I was disappointed that right before Gwede spoke was a team, a South African and international team, talking about what is the investment climate for mining right now? Where's the money going and why? And here's Carolyn Donnelly, an ex-South African corporate financier, born and raised in this country. She's only been in Texas maybe 10, 12 years. Senior director, vice president in Denham Capital that has many, many billions to put just in resources all over the world. They built that tin mine in the middle of the DRC. They had to use terrorists to escort their own vehicles and fight the other terrorists. So they're not afraid of risk, but they got no intention of investing here. And Caroline was very clear that everything has changed in mining and investing literally the last 6 months because of a gentleman named Donald Trump. And that Mr. Trump is now known for drill, baby, drill, dig, baby, dig. And she says, we're seeing mining companies in the States get permits in weeks now, and they used to wait for years. She says, half the federal agencies are terrified of being accused of holding up any mining. And so now we're seeing this big exploration project and highway open up in Alaska, go in and explore. That thing's been held up for decades. And we can talk more about that. But yeah, Gwede missed a great opportunity. Instead of rambling on about the same, instead of backing up and saying, we're going to improve our mining charter to encourage investments, I thought he was just repeating more of the same, if not doubling down.
I want to ask Gemini, how old is Gwede Mantashe? Because that might have something to do with it. When people get old and they think old, they do tend to, not change with the change that happens around us. And perhaps wait for
Alec,
Gemini to tell us in a moment.
I might be older than Gwede, so I better watch what I say.
He's 70 years old, born on the 21st of June, 1955. Maybe it's
I'm
time
older than him.
It's time for Gwede to move across.
4 weeks. Yeah.
4 weeks to move over and let somebody younger who actually understands that when you have these historic opportunities, they should be taken care of or taken advantage of. But Pete, what you're saying now is if in the North America, or in particular in the United States, there is a change of heart and projects that previously weren't mineable because of the delays, if that's opening up, that means that the pool of capital, presumably, that was available for mining is going to be even less for South Africa because a big chunk of that is now going to go into the US, where it now has an opportunity to be invested.
That's exactly what Caroline said. She says it is quite a finite pool of capital. Most of the money is going into IT. There's more investment money out there than ever. But yeah, the pool that's going into mining hasn't changed hardly at all in the last 20 years, the total pool. And that's exactly what Caroline said, is these funnels that are pointing all over the world, Africa, Asia, parts of Europe, you're all going to turn and look at America because everybody likes to have a project in America, because the first thing is that Mining Act has not changed since 1872. Second of all, nobody knows how to spell the word expropriation in America. And so, yes, America has untapped resources that if they can't match South Africa, they can give it a run for its money. And what a safe place. And yeah, now it's easy to get your permit. So Gwede could have picked up on that cue. He could have said, I hear what Caroline said, but we want to change things. We want to make it easier to get a license here in South Africa than in America. We want a quicker turnaround, and we want people to have more certainty that their license is legit and can't be messed with. He just ignored the whole panel before him. And I don't think it was a coincidence that Bernard put that panel at the end. Because it was relevant. He wanted to keep the audience there. You always have a good act at the end of a long conference because you don't want people leaving early. So it was good that Bernard put the panel he did. And that was a perfect chance for Gwede to rise to the occasion instead of totally ignore it and those people that were making a really good contribution. Very disappointing. It's like he doesn't want to be remembered, or he's going to be remembered poorly. And it would have been so easy for him to rise the occasion and say, wow, there's a spark of concern for the 450,000 gold miners that him and Cyril have managed to help lay off, and for probably another 100,000 other miners in base metal mines and diamond mines that have been laid off unnecessarily. But he doesn't seem to care about those men.
Another own goal, and it seems like the old fellows need to leave the building and leave it fast. But they have the ideologies which were born often, unfortunately, in Soviet Russia, and they still believe that what they know is the way that the world is, and they're seeing the world as they want it to be, not as it truly is. What about the whole potential, though, for Donald Trump to just force the issue? We know he loves mining. And he's shown that, as you say, dig, baby, dig, and drill, baby, drill. And he does see, if he loves mining, he's got to love what minerals are in the ground in South Africa, especially now that the Chinese are getting quite aggressive in the minerals they control around the world, rare earths and magnets being, rare earths and then magnets on top of that. And those are critical to the global supply chain. And we got them here in South Africa. We got everything in South Africa.
Yeah,
Might he be forcing the point there, saying to his trade negotiators, just bring these guys to the table so that we can open up something, almost force them to take advantage of the bounty that the good Lord has given this country.
You know what? The little bit I know about Mr. Trump, I think if Mr. Trump thinks you have a proclivity to hang yourself, to hurt yourself, I think he will help you. I think if you want to hang yourself, he'll say, here, let me supply the rope. I just looked at the way he negotiated with the Arab countries and especially with Hamas. And, he's convinced they don't care about their people. He's convinced they don't care about themselves. They're quite happy to die. And I got the impression he's happy to help them do that. And I think the same with South Africa, Alec. America is bigger than South Africans think, certainly bigger than the ANC thinks. America is more resourceful and has more resources than the ANC thinks. And God did a pretty good job of spreading minerals equally over the world. Like he spread forests and he spread water. And we were very good at exploiting the minerals we had. We are very good at using the little bit of water we've got in this country. And using the few people we had or the backward people to build a magnificent first world country. We were good at that. But now we seem determined to destroy it. I think Mr. Trump doesn't care. I saw a presentation yesterday by a rare earths company in America that says we can get enough rare earths out of our mine, and it's a coal mine. And our rare earths are not radioactive out of a coal mine. And we can supply America's needs with just this mine. And we know America already has other rare earths mine, and an associate of mine from university, very sharp, fourth from top of our class, the whole graduating class. And he says, Pete, we can get rare earths out of salt mines. We can get them out of certain hot springs here, and they're not radioactive. So all they've needed, they don't even need the money that Mr. Trump's offered. They just need to back off on the regulations. And there's a sign for our government. We don't need the PIC to put in 1.5 billion for exploring. Half of it will get misused. The other half will get stolen. Who knows? Go in the wrong direction. We shouldn't be funding. We don't need to fund that. We just got to back off on the regulations. Just throw all these regulations out the door. Follow Trump's lead. Just back off on them. And private industry will do it, like we're doing in the DRC, like we're doing in Uganda, and definitely like we're doing in Zambia. Their infrastructure is a mess, but because their regulations are accommodative for exploration and mining, it's boom times out there.
It often kind of confuses me as well, after going to the Berkshire Hathaway event a number of times, that countries elsewhere in the world don't listen to what Warren Buffett says, which is history shows you that the United States has got the best system at delivering goods and services, and that creates wealth. So if you're looking at that and you say, well, how does 5% of the world's people who live in the United States manage to control 26% of the world's wealth, or 5 times? They're outperforming 5 times. Hey, let's go and do what they're doing. The Chinese, to a degree, have picked up on that, not on the political side. But it's almost like we in South Africa are saying, "Oh, no, that's all wrong. They're doing something. They're making, they're gaming the system." When indeed it's just to do with exactly what you've said a moment ago. Just go a little deeper though into Trump's stories with the investments he's now making directly into mines. What is that all about?
Alec, I'm a little bit worried about that because now let's talk capital allocation. America is pretty darn good at capital allocation, and they allow the individuals, they allow the companies and the people to allocate capital as they best see fit. And wasn't Warren Buffett the master of capital allocation? Of course he was. And America has got to be the master of capital allocation because the S&P is now what? 2/3 of the world index. And we're talking some big countries in the world, China, India, they got big stock markets. They're big, rich countries. Each one of them is 5 times the size of America. America is great at capital allocation. South Africa was pretty good at it. Now they're horrible at it. So I'd love someone to say to the ANC, you've had a budget in today's terms of what, 2.5 billion a year? You've been empowered for 30 years? Sorry, 2.5 trillion. So in real terms, you've had 60 trillion rand in 30 years. How did you allocate that capital? Did you put it into things that paid back more than the capital and they paid a return on it? Or did you put it into black holes? We know consumption you don't get much back on. Maybe a hangover, maybe a good memory. But okay, let's get back to your question then. Sorry, I got sidetracked. We're talking capital allocation. We're talking America.
Why the world doesn't follow the American example.
Yeah. Why? I don't even think it's ideology. I think it's blatant stubbornness. Yeah. China followed it. And I think they said this is an American ideology. This just makes sense, growing, giving the individuals latitude to earn capital and to allocate it how they want. Now, yeah, you raised the question. Mr. Trump is now starting to allocate America's capital. I'm not sure he's a great capital allocator. Last I heard, he had 3-4 listed companies that all went bust. Now, he managed to make a few billion out of it, but the investors didn't. So I think he's taking it too far. And I know some other big people, not me, big people, reputable people also think he's taking it too far. Backing off from the regulations should be enough. Lowering interest rates, Alec, should be enough. You just back off on overzealous regulators, and the free market will do the rest. That's why the IT industry grows so well. There's no regulators because they didn't know what to regulate. Mining grew great in the 1800s and 1900s because there weren't regulators and they didn't know how to regulate it. Once you get a large government in place and they start regulating things, once you nationalize the properties, the minerals, now you're really regulating, you're not going to get that kind of growth. So I worry that Mr. Trump does he need to take a stake in these companies? Telling NVIDIA, I'll let you sell the chips if I get 10 or 15%. I got problems with that. Either let him sell or don't let him sell. Now, and he badmouths Obama for investing in some solar companies, some alternative energy companies that went buns up. Hey, that happens to fund managers. We don't need a government to do that. Government wastes and loses enough money. They don't need to get into venture capital. I don't think the United States has to provide extra low interest rate loans. Maybe they give some tax breaks, a 5-year tax break. All your capital can be tax deductible in the year you expend it. South Africa had very general rule accepted breaks, and that led to Oppenheimer sinking 4-kilometer deep shafts out of his own pocket, spending billions out of his own pocket. So that's all the incentive he needed. He didn't need subsidies. He didn't need the government to take 10, 20%. If they want to, fine. Be a lot better than BEE. And a lot of people recommended that. Less chance for corruption.
Talking about BEE, and it's not directly involved, but there certainly has been quite a lot of malfeasance in the name of BEE. This past week, we've had another angle coming into the whole General Mkwanazi's allegations and the fighting within the turf wars, perhaps within the SA Police Services, and then Paul O'Sullivan coming on the scene. And this week, a guy called Mike Miller from Mantengu Mining, which is a very small little company listed on the JSE. He claims that his company has been targeted by one Zunaid Moti, who has a right of reply. Was going to come on next week, but he's coming on the following week. He's visiting his mines in Zimbabwe and Botswana, which was interesting. So he's also a miner. Do you know much about Mantengo, about Mike Miller, and about their products?
I know a bit about his operation, the ore body, Blue Ridge, and I know a bit about previous associates of his, and he is quick go to court. He's not afraid to go to court. He's not afraid to litigate. And I know people that have bumped heads with him, and it got quite acrimonious, quite mean. And you know what they told me? They can't say that he's corrupt. They say he can be pig-headed, Pete. He can be a brute to deal with. But for all the hardship we had going against him, we never thought he was corrupt. And I think that's interesting, Alec. And we know there's fun and games on the JSE, and we know they are dozy. Ask a Mr. James Gubb. And I worked with James. Everybody down here knows James Gubb. If you don't, you're missing out. And remember that James Gubb made so much money on his hedge funds that he starts taking up art. And one of his first art pieces was at the middle finger, and he made out of plotting a graph on INET out of the price movements of the Gupta's company. And what happens? Well, no good deed goes undone, goes unpunished, right? I think he got slapped with a 200,000-300,000 rand fine for share price manipulation. He says, geez, guys, I just decided today I'll buy this many, tomorrow I'll buy that many. And the market, it just allowed him to buy what he wanted. He wasn't manipulating the price, but somebody was, and we all know who it was. Now, why does the JSE, and I've heard this too many times for it to be fiction, too many times since I've been here, 44 years. So I'm leaning towards Mike. I don't know him personally very well, but I've known people that worked with him, and they're not fans of his either. And they're kind of sticking up for, the guy's got principles, and he's got an established track record. Now, I don't know Mr. Moti personally or Mr. Sullivan, but I've encountered people, we've had clients that have bore the wrath of the Motis. And it's been quite emotional. So, hey, there's a lot of smoke coming out of him. I got to believe there's a fire there somewhere. And right now, if I'm in front of the temple or the church, and I have to lay my cards, who do I think's been a little more honest here? I'd probably lay it on Mike's side. Yeah, the JSE, there's a lot going on there. I won't say the JSE knows about it. That's part of the problem. They actually don't know what's going on there. And there's sharp people out there. There's syndicates out there. And we all know since the ANC took over, the syndicates have bloomed. They've been watered. They've been fed. They've been fertilized. And internationally, it's a free-for-all. The U.S. picked up credit card fraud, was mushrooming out of this one country within 2 years of Mandela taking over as president. So yeah, I'm leaning more on Miller's side than on Moti's side, but I don't want to go to court over it.
I guess it wouldn't be surprising that the criminals would be looking at the JSE. And as you say, the JSE is dozy. It was a monopoly for so many years. It still, I guess, is struggling to get out of those monopolistic practices. But I remember an incident with a company called Alec. It was a paint manufacturer that a fellow called Solibana and his brother, can't remember his name, got hold of, and they manipulated that price of that share from something around 20 cents to something around 20 rand. And they really pulled the ring out of it. And it was only sometime later that after lots of tears that Solibana and his brother was held accountable. And I don't know how accountable, because I think they were later involved in another scam that came along the way. It is just the way that it is. Sometimes it feels like we're still a mining camp in Johannesburg.
Look, the small cap sector is outrageous in America. You didn't need to watch Wolf of Wall Street to have an idea what goes on there. If you're in the heart of capitalism and there's more money than the rest of the world put together, you're definitely going to try your odds there. That's what syndicates do. They look for gaps. They look for where either there's lax regulation or the regulation actually benefits them. And boy, we see that in this country, Alec. The mining regulation is so extreme that it penalizes anybody normally mining, but the minerals are there begging to get out. So it widens the door that the syndicates can get in. They don't have to abide by any of those rules or regulations. And we talk about Gwede, and not that I'm a religious fanatic, but we know Moses had 10 commandments, right? And Gwede's got something like 2,500, maybe he's pushing 3,000. And I think before Moses and the 10 commandments was that the Hebrews had some 600 and let me think, I wrote it down someplace, but like 613 commandments, and maybe 250 were things you could do and 350 were things you couldn't do, and that's what Gwede's done. So that just ties up legitimate companies. So they die or they leave or they shrink, and it expands illicit syndicated mafiosa companies just by the regulations.
And by the fact that they do not follow the rules, and hence the Zamazamas are showing us. What about this Cyril Ramaphosa's 10-point plan?
Oh my gosh.
That is going to save South Africa.
This is what you call doubling down. You put something forward and you don't implement it right, or you can't implement it. So instead of taking it away, you double down. You add double that. And I printed it out. I can't read this on a WhatsApp. One paragraph, Alec, would take a team of real experts. I look at this thing. First of all, he announced his party colleagues have called a new action plan. Why would someone, if you got a team of people that have destroyed our economy for 30 years, how are they going to build one that turns it around? That's a hockey stick dream, right? And they notice that our growth has lagged emerging market peers. No, our growth has lagged everybody. I wouldn't doubt Afghanistan is growing faster on poppy harvest than we're growing. The chief reason for the slump is no investment in South Africa's economy. That they nailed on the head. There's no international investment here, and there's virtually no local investment. So yes, that is really hurting the economy. They should ask, why is there no investment here? When there's trillions sloshing around, everybody's a capitalist, everybody's greedy, everybody wants to make money. So why wouldn't they put some money here? Anyways, they want to improve growth and employment. His party wants to improve growth. Well, haven't they wanted that for 30 years? Why do they want to do it now? And it just goes on and on. I relate it to, he's got so many objectives here, these 10 points. Each paragraph has 4 subpoints. Hitler lost World War II because he couldn't focus. Russia was big. He wasn't sure if he wanted to take Moscow first or the Caucasus oil fields. Oh, I don't like that town called Stalingrad. Let me go there. Ooh, Leningrad's also a bad town. Some of you guys go up there. Hitler had too many objectives. Well, Cyril, he's got 5-10 times what Hitler did. He would have got out of Berlin with all his objectives. So we want to focus on electricity tariffs. Really. He wants to lower the cost of electricity and bring back chrome and steel industry. It's gone. The deep level gold mines are gone. You're never going to bring them back. Somebody else might if you guys get out of government, but you'll never bring them back. Improve the state capacity to manage. Oh my gosh. How can you improve the state's capacity to manage? They manage nothing in 30 years. You're going to improve that with more money? Yeah. Driving development in townships. Get rid of all rules and regulations. The 7th will increase state funding. Oh, no, we're already funding too much that goes down the tube. Okay. Effective budget and macroeconomic coordination. Those are big words. See, that alone would take all their time. So I don't think these innovative financial models, the ANC's brainiacs are going to dream up, are going to attract capital. So it's gibberish. It is not even pie in the sky. It's people smoking a joint after they've already gotten drunk.
Pete, let's have a look at the big story of the moment globally, which is the Chinese rare metals, rare earth minerals. What's going on there, and do we need to be worried?
This has turned out to be a game changer of note, Alec. And I think virtually as powerful as the atom bomb was in World War II. That was the game changer. And we've known about China monopolizing rare earths from the early 90s. And I followed it. Some of my associates have followed it because we had good deposits here. And they just could produce rare earths at a price that nobody could make money on. And as they were busy producing, they were busy refining, also at a price nobody could. We see today, copper smelters are non-existent in the rest of the world. They can't match China. China will take your concentrates almost for free and give you the copper and quite a few of the byproducts back for free. So how can you justify building a smelter in this country, let alone America, when China virtually does it for free? Your cost of capital enters into it. Your payback is infinite. So rare earths, as the Ukraine-Russia war has shown us, the game changer, the new nuclear bomb, are drones. These drones can go almost anywhere, and they're small. We've seen the little ones that land on your hand. They look like a dragonfly, and yet they can put a bomb that will blow a guy's head off. Those tiny little things. Now, they come in all sizes. We got drones the size of F-15 fighter planes, and they don't have to cater for a human being, so they can load more armaments, more electronics, and it'll be lighter. Doesn't need as big an engine. So these drones have game-changed war. And America could be sitting with this whole arsenal that's obsolete, with trillions of dollars of tanks and planes, maybe even missiles that are obsolete. And we all know, ask Elon Musk, where all the defense budget goes. He says, what is it? The holy five. Nobody can crack the defense budget. There's 5 or 6 industries in America that get it all. And we know people get stuck in the mud after a while. They just keep doing what they've been doing. So to run drones and the mechanisms that go with them, you need rare earths. And if China is producing and refining 90%, it could be a scary few years. If there's a war now, it's not going to be fought with men on the ground. Probably not going to be fought with nuclear weapons, maybe radar jamming devices. I always said the U.S. should be spending more money on freaking death rays than building more tanks, more battleships, more aircraft carriers. So we said earlier, God spread minerals all over the world. There's rare earths in Uganda. There's rare earths in Zambia. I know some great deposits there. Call me up. I'd like the investment. America's got rare earths. A lot of rare earths are in byproducts. You don't even have to open a new mine. Now, can you extract them? Can you refine them? And we don't have to say economically anymore. I've got South African associates they're selling to America at 4 times the going rate. That's how desperate they said the Department of Defense is. 4 times the market rate. Panic is great for investors. I loved it when I was a fund manager. I loved the panic because most of the guys out there were kids and didn't know what they're doing. I was trying to help them out, relieving them of those good shares at a good price. So, yeah, rare earths, that's the new nuclear weapons here. It's going to change the face completely of war in the future. And we've been watching it and only slowly catching on. This is how it's going to be going forward. Maybe modified a little bit. So China's playing hardball here. They don't like the attitude that Mr. Trump's giving them. They don't like being treated, they think, less than an equal. And it's tit for tat. They don't buy any more soybeans. We're not going to buy any more vegetable oil. They're not going to sell us rare earths. We're going to cut back on the chips. I don't think globalization can be turned back. The rest of the world's happy to keep it. But yeah, sometimes things get out of balance. And I'm hoping cool heads prevail. They got to have more face-to-face talk and less discussing in the press and in the media and work things out.
Sure. But that's some pretty scary stuff that you've shared with us there. Just to round it all off, those rare earth miners in South Africa who are selling at 4 times the market price, what about other miners who are selling into the United States from this country? How do the Trump tariffs, or how have they been affecting them?
Okay, small correction. The South African miners selling it at 4 times the price are selling it out of another country. They've invested their expertise in another country that has the same thing we do, but there they can get it, quick permits, don't have 30% BEE, don't have restrictions. Okay, yeah. America, they mainly get the PGMs from us. We are the biggest PGM producer. 70-75% of platinum, 40-45% of palladium. I think 80% of rhodium, ruthenium. And hey, if nothing else, Trump and the people surrounding him are pragmatists. So he can yell at the country all he wants. He can say, I'm banning all your projects. I'm putting tariffs on all yours. Oh, but I'll let these come in. These are critical. These are strategic. And it's that simple, huh? We can't go out and just flood the market with these PGMs. Europe can't take that many. China can't take that many. So I would say the majority of the metals, majority being over 66%, are the PGMs. I spoke to the Sabanya people quite a bit. Richard Stewart's very open about it. They don't think it's going to have any tariffs on it. He went through about 5 reasons for me, and that's part of the reason though they took on Stillwater. They said, hey, if America wants to mine its own, they got them right there. But Stillwater does not have that much platinum, tons of palladium, doesn't have hardly any rhodium, ruthenium, iridium. The rest of the metals, what do we send to America? A little bit of chrome. China produces all the world's ferrochrome. Some manganese, yeah. America produces a little steel. We've got great manganese. They get some of that from us. Trump can call that strategic. No tariffs applicable. So we'll keep selling to them. Fluorspar, it's important in the nuclear industry. America still has more nuclear reactors than anybody else. So fluorspar, we sell them some steel products, some aluminum products. We sell them a lot of produce. I think we must export close to as much fruit as we do minerals now, Alec. Yeah, they're not really dependent on us except for the PGMs. And I think both countries still like each other enough. They'll make sure that flows unimpeded.
You haven't mentioned motor vehicles, and that's the one area that South Africa doesn't have a strategic advantage in, but is selling a lot into the US.
I forgot about that. That's why it takes 2 of us to put these stories together. But yeah, you're right. And hey, I don't think Mr. Trump will have any problem putting a tariff on those. Yeah, they compete with his industries. PGMs don't compete with his industries, and the company supplying him with the most owns Stillwater Mine and employs Americans, and they're even getting, remember Richard was telling us at the Indaba the first day, they're getting, I think, a 10-year subsidy that doesn't have to be repaid from the United States, which helps them justify the price that they paid for Stillwater. working with America, it can't be that difficult. Just make an effort.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end this edition of the Miningweb Weekly. Pete, as always, thanks for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your encyclopedic knowledge of the industry with us. Not everyone believes or agrees, rather. They believe you, but they don't always agree with you. But I've found you such a wonderful teacher, and thanks again for sharing with us this week. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.